Hey everybody, we're on another walk. It's Teresa and Lamar.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going about 3.5, 4 miles. Let's move out the way. There's a car coming.
Ah, Lamar just got run over.
There's another one.
Yes, sir.
It doesn't have many sidewalks here, but we'll make do. Been doing this for a while.
Like every day.
See some dogs coming up. I know they're gonna bark us down, but we're gonna keep on moving. I ain't bring my stick. He making all this noise out here. You gonna call the dogs out. I hear them barking.
Boom shakalaka laka. Boom shakalaka laka. They go out to turn the volume down on that mug.
I got this selfie stick, so if somebody jump over the fence.
We fighting. We fighting.
So, all right, everybody, it's time for a little story time. I'll go first. I wanted to talk about when we first went into the military, you know, because of Veterans Day. And I went to the military, 18. This was back in 1986. I wanted to leave home, wanted to get me a career started since I just graduated. So I didn't know what to do. I was working at McDonald's that time. And I said, well, this McDonald's job got to go. And
McDonald's.
and so I said, well, I didn't want to go to school. So I was like, well, I'm gonna have to find something else. And I saw a commercial, come on. I was watching Soul Train. And I saw an Army commercial come on. I saw an Army commercial come on there. I said, that might be something. So I said, well, I need to get down to the recruiting station or whatever and talk to the recruiter and everything. I said, so I had my mom take me. And she didn't think I was gonna do it. And so I went on there, I said, well, I gotta find me a job. I can't stay here. And so I signed up, but the next class was like in November. This is 1986, so I had to wait a few months before I could go. And I was like, oh, it's gonna be cold. But anyway, I still went on and did it. And so I went on to Fort McClellan, Alabama is where I did my basic.
Alabama.
But the one story that I remember in basic training was when we had to go to the field. It was cold. We were marching out, all this stuff on our back, the rucksack, it's heavy. And while we was walking out, it started to rain. I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm gonna make this. I was freezing. And so we got to the site where we were gonna put up our tent. And so my battle buddy, since our bunks was like right across from each other, so we had to pair up. And so I paired up with her, and so she had one shell, half of the tent, and I had the other half. So we had to put those two halves together and share a tent. And so it started raining, and so I had to dig the trench around. And I looked over her, I thought she was gonna help me, and she was standing there freezing. And she was like, I said, what you doing? And she said, it's cold, it's cold. She was just over there shrugging and just shaking and everything, and wouldn't help me. So I'm sitting there digging the trench around the tent, so the rain will flow around the tent. And she just would not help. She kept saying she was freezing. And so I dug all of it by myself.
Shammer.
So we got in, put our stuff in and put the sleeping bag in there, whatever. Yeah, it was freezing, but I don't know where I made it through, because usually I'm cold and my hands are frozen and everything, but I did it. And she just, I was so surprised. I was like, because she seemed like she was one of the toughest people in there. But then when we went out into the cold, so it was a little bit shocking to me or whatever, but that just shows you some people, they're not tough all the time, or they're not as tough as you think they are. And so we got in, after everything was done, she put her sleeping bag in there, and she just went in the sleeping bag and do nothing else. I was like, oh my God. So yeah, that was my story of when I first went in. But it was a lot of memories, and through the years, I only did like 4.5 years, but we had a lot of stories. But Lamar's basic training was different than mine, so I'll let him tell you his story.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I went in 1984. I was fresh out of Steubenville, Ohio, and I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Now, there's a big difference in the weather in the summertime in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and Steubenville, Ohio. It is a big difference. And the first thing that hit me, so I'm new to the Army, but my concern was the weather. As soon as I get to Columbia, South Carolina, first time on the plane, I get there and the heat, it felt like the sun was on the earth. I could not believe that. I said, oh, this is gonna be rough. I was ready for all the Army stuff and I was fit and in shape and all that. I was ready for all of that, but I was not ready for this heat. I never forget, I called my mother and told her, it's about 900 degrees down here. You would not believe what this June South Carolina heat feel like down here. We're like, well, you better get out there and handle your business or you come back here and be running the streets or whatever. No, we ain't gonna do that. But that was the hardest adjustment I had to make, was getting out there in that heat. First thing that happened, they gave us these Army uniforms and we had to learn how to march. They had us out on the black pavement. The problem is you had, I don't know, a platoon of 50 people or something like that, whatever it was. And whenever anybody made a mistake, not just me, but if somebody else made a mistake, they would say, stop, half left, please, drop. And I said, first time I said, drop, what does that mean? And I quickly figured out that that meant stop and get down on that black pavement and do some push-ups. I'm like, hey, this pavement is hot. I'm like, I'm looking, I'm trying to rationalize, saying, hey, you don't expect me to put my hands on this pavement, do you? They're like, drop, get down and do push-ups. 1, 2, 3, 4. I said, huh, this is inhumane. I quickly found out that the Army doesn't consider things inhumane. You are to do it, and that's that. And so, after about a whole day of stop, half left, pace, drop, I looked at my hands at the end of the day. There's blisters all on my hands. I said, y'all expect me to do this every day? I said, you will do this every day or you'll be back home in Ohio. I said, oh, that's how this works. So that was my introduction to military life, and dealing with scenarios that, that I didn't find ideal. And I quickly found out, and I'm 18 years old at the time, I quickly found out that this is the way life works as an adult. Things happen that you don't have any control over, and you have to deal with them. And so I was like, oh, you can't just quit. Now, there were people who just quit. They were like, oh, I want to go home. And they left and went home. I was like, oh, I don't want to go home back to Ohio. We was on welfare back there. I don't want no part of that. I'm an adult. I need to handle this business. So what I learned through my experience in basic training in 1984, I learned that you can overcome anything. It could be some hard situations that are presented to you, but you gotta overcome it. And I've been doing that from the age of 18 to 60. I can't believe that. I've been overcoming these situations, and I continue to do that. And I'm glad that I did that.
All right. So we have plenty of these stories, and we'll continue to bring them to you. So we are at the end of our walk, and what does Strauss say? 4 miles. Okay, y'all, we done for the day.
Yes, sir.
All right, peace out.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.